Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so super happy to be with you as always. And today we are continuing on with our series about integration periods and breakthrough. Last week, we started off with low value work cycles. Not really the most inspiring podcast to kick off what is eventually going to be about breakthrough, but it is one of the steps through getting you to breakthrough. Is at one of my business coaches, Fabienne Fredrickson, said years ago, there is always a breakdown before the breakthrough. So when we get to breakdown, which tends to be our low value work cycles, that is when we are starting the process toward breakthrough. So again, if you want to go back to that podcast episode, you will hear that when you go through low value work cycles, not only are they normal and nothing's gone wrong, but you tend to be able to get through them faster, to get to the breakthrough faster. So they're an important cog in the wheel towards your business achieving its level up, as it were. And every day that you show up to your business mat, to use a yoga analogy, every time that you show up to your business mat every day, you're met with a new you and a new business. So you're going to feel at times like you're in complete flow, just as you would be if you were on a yoga mat. You will feel in complete flow and you'll feel like things are going great. Then you're going to experience times where the wheels fall off the bus, your systems are broken, employees aren't working out well, and then systems fall apart and you need the fix it protocol. And then you will hit these periods of time of quiet and lower volume, and you're going to need to understand and plan and prepare for them. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is integration periods, as I call them. And these are the periods of time between the super high volume of work where things slow down. We don't have the number of sales calls happening. We don't have the number of appointments on the books, and that can lead us to stress. And I want to talk about how we can plan for those better. So, and part of the reason why I want to talk about this too, is that at this time of year, the time that I'm recording this, we are coming out of our spring season and heading into that quieter time, summer, winter, whatever hemisphere you're in. For many of us, we have the seasonality and cyclical nature to the business where we get a lot quieter. And these quiet times in business, quite frankly, can generate stress, frustration, confusion, disappointment. We don't know what to do with our teams. We don't know what to do with ourselves. And if we're not prepared, it can lead to lower quality planning and decision making. We can think that maybe we need to close the business, or, we're stressed about paying our bills, and we, maybe we'll take jobs that seem like they bring in revenue, but at the end of the day, we don't actually make a single dollar from them because we haven't priced them right, or we've agreed to discounts or things like that. So I want to dive into this topic of the integration periods, these slower, quieter times, so that we can plan better for them. I was not immune to this. I was not immune to experiencing all of that I've just talked about. I mean, when I was on my own, it was just a business directory of one. It wasn't as stressful. It was maybe more frustrating, confusing, because I didn't realize that there was this cyclical nature to the business. But when I added overhead in the form of team and inventory and infrastructure, maybe software, things like that, the stress definitely began to grow. And I wasn't sure, from month to month, how I would pay for continuing to operate this business because I hadn't planned very well. And I had always imagined that when the company grew and we were having really busy spring seasons, that the summers and winters would continue to be steady. And that was not the case. And that's not been the case. That has not been the case in the business ever. The summer and the winter gets really, really quiet. So I wanted to share this with you because it's a reality for many of us in the staging industry. So let's just face it and plan for it. So when I first realized that this was going to be the tradition in the business, that we would hit these times of year, I needed to begin to call them something different. Because for me, up until I really started to be a little more strategic, I was just calling these like the times that I was going to freak out about how I was going to pay my bills. so, um, so I decided the first thing I could do is embrace it and call these integration times. So the first thing I needed to do was plan more financially for these things. So let me just back up and just tell you why I chose that terminology, integration times, because the definition of integration is to form, coordinate, or blend into a functioning or unified whole, to unite with something else. So the first thing I needed to do was unite with this period of time and understand that my business expenses, while they were 12 months, the time period for my operations and my key revenue times, at least in those early days, was coming from just a few months out of the year. So I needed to be able to stretch that revenue to pay for operations for a 12-month run business that made money in maybe 5 months at that time. So the first thing that I had to do was I had to look at how I was planning financially for those times of year. That's when I encountered profit first. Now, I followed profit first, not exactly how they said it. According to Profit First, you would be putting lots of money in lots of buckets and lots of accounts and setting up lots of accounts. I chose to not do that because it felt confusing and it felt like it made bookkeeping more expensive, which I wanted to keep that cost a little bit lower in the beginning. So the first thing I did with Profit First was that I set up an external bank account that I did not see, that I set up an automatic withdrawal from. So I started by just taking out $100 each week out of my accounts and sending it off into the savings account. And what happened was that account began to grow. And as that began to grow, I was able to tap into that. That was like my cash reserve account. I didn't know that's what it was really called at the time, but that was the first step that I did. That was super helpful in helping me generate money that I wasn't even anticipating having when the quiet time came up. So that was the first thing I did. But then what I did was I looked into my financials even further. So, because that was for me the big thing. As I mentioned in the low value cycles, I had put a lot of, the business investment onto credit cards, because again, I didn't know that I could have gone for like a business loan or something like that at a lower interest rate. So I had a lot of money sitting out on credit cards, which, today, obviously I don't recommend that, but at the end of the day, I was able to right size my finances and my financial picture so that that is no longer an issue for me, which is phenomenal. But it started here. It started with going, okay, I'm going to have a 12-month, run of operational expenses that I need to cover in, at the time, like I said, 5-6 months worth of robust business. So I had to look at the profitability by job. So one of the things that I learned was that I actually didn't really know what was, how much time was being dedicated to each part of a job. So for vacant staging, for example, first thing I needed to do was I needed to actually start looking at how I priced our rental items. But then, because I wasn't really using any math based on that, so I started with that. I started looking at, okay, first thing I can do is increase profitability on our rental items. What are we approximately charging per item right now? And I definitely needed to bump that up. So I literally went through an exercise where I was like, okay, so every throw pillow that we have will get rented out at, I think I started at $5 because most of my pillows were $30 through Home Goods. And then I bumped that up over time. But I literally took every piece of thing we would put into a project and I priced it out so that I could get a realistic picture of what it would cost. And I created a spreadsheet, by the way, which is inside Rethink You. I created a spreadsheet that I used to itemize everything in each room. So I had a better picture of what we were renting out. And boy, was it eye-opening when I actually put real numbers and did real math. The next thing I did was we were using a time tracking app to track our time. but we weren't tracking it in a way that told me anything about what was happening during that time frame. So we started using an app called Get Harvest. Our team is in love with Harvest. The Harvest app is super easy to use. And what we did was we broke down for a vacant staging, we broke down that tracking time to the preview, to developing the quote, to creating the inventory needed list, all the admin associated with the back end of scheduling, the inventory pull, the installation, the D stage. So we could find out how long it was taking to do each job, but we could also get a total of the hours that it was taking our team from start to finish, and restock as well. So we took, for each project, we divided each of those phases out. And when somebody was assigned for that activity, that's what they would clock their time to, so that we could see the total picture and we could see what was taking longer in each phase. And then we could make a plan to increase our revenue, but also increase our efficiency. So we really started to dive into what our like profitability analysis was all about when we were in those quieter times, because when you're in the busy times, you don't have time to do that. This integration time is a great time to begin to look at that and see, like, if a job seemed to be less profitable, why was it less profitable? Was it in the city where you needed to use an elevator or you had to park further away? So how can you price those jobs more accurately in the future? We also did a review of expenses. Where were we going? Where were we? Did we have duplication? What expenses could we, cut? So you can do an expense analysis. And what you can do is you can red light, green light, yellow light something. So green light is things that you absolutely need, that are very entrenched in the way that you do your business. So that could be software, that could be administrative support, that could be obviously insurance. Like, those things are all green. Yellow would be something that, it's like a nice to have, but a not need to have. So maybe that is, I'm trying to think of an example of what would be a yellow in our business. What would have been a yellow? I'll think of something, but yellow is like kind of iffy. You could take it or leave it. And red is just like, do we really need this? Do we really need to be paying for this service? We're not using it quite the way that we should be. Or we're not maximizing it. And is this something that we either need to look at? Can we use it better? Or are we just paying for something? It could be a small subscription to, I don't know, maybe it's like you're automating your social media posts, but you're not really using that scheduling app anymore. You're, doing it in real time or something like that. Maybe you can cut those expenses. So that's another great way you can review your financials. The next is you can look at ways that you might be able to automate things in your business that you're currently using people time for. So is there a way that you can automate, the way you onboard a client, the emails you send, the way things get scheduled? Maybe you're doing that manually. One of the things that we did was we created a whole process, which I talk about in the episode. Oh gosh, I don't even remember what episode it is now. But it was about how we actually schedule our styling evaluations. That went from a manual process to now pretty much a fully automated process, with sometimes administrative support jumping in there, because we realized that there was technology that we could use that can make that a lot more efficient and user friendly, actually, for our clients. So you can look to ways that you can automate to create efficiencies. You can dive deeper, as I said, into your pricing to make sure it's right sized for where you are in your growth. Sometimes you start your pricing, maybe you're doing your styling evaluations and you're charging, $200 for that. But then what you realize is that you had set that price when it was just you. Now you have team, and team is delivering that service. And maybe now you have more overhead in the forms of your technology that you use, or your inventory, overhead and things like that. And you need to increase the price on that service. Maybe you need to dig deeper into that. Maybe even the same thing when you do the analysis of profitability by job or how much you're renting things out for, you need to increase your price in order to right size. You can also, during this time of planning and research, dive deeper into streamlining your systems. So if you have gotten busy and you realize that systems are falling apart, this is the time that you can look at what were the systems that fell apart and what are some of the easiest ones that you can clean up and do better. And you can do this with your team. And this is where, like, if you don't know what to do with your team, this is a really good one to bring them in. It's like a great time to meet and collaborate and brainstorm and get their input on your fix-it protocol. So if, your fix-it protocol would go through fact finding to see what didn't go well in your systems. What were some of the issues that prevented the system from working the way that you were hoping it would work? What can you cross off that list very quickly to get it resolved? What things will you need to implement and kind of monitor in the next busy season? What can you put into place now? So this is another great thing that you can do during this planning and research during your integration phase. You can, like I said, save more effectively for the future, but you can also brainstorm and collaborate with your team about new revenue streams that you can provide to your clients during these quieter times. So maybe you are looking at, you could up the number of consultations for people who are living in their homes. Maybe that's color consultations, or we have something called the space lift, which is all about kind of taking our styling evaluation and turning that into something that homeowners can use, because homeowners love like quick ways to make their house feel so much better. And that's something that we're offering through our space lift service in these quieter times. And then we can plan, because we know that we want these to happen during these quieter times, we can be marketing for them during our busier times, so that we're sending out marketing messages in preparation for the quieter times. You can create your mission statements and corporate values with your team together during this time, because this actually will help guide your hiring decisions and also your letting go of employees' decision making when you have a mission statement and corporate values. A great book to do this that our team worked through was the book called Traction by Gino Wickman. I'll link that in the show notes. But it really just gets everyone on the same page, and it enables better communication with the employees when they're not meeting the values, because you can point back to those values and say, one of our values is to meet every challenge through the lens of learning and education and development. And I've noticed when I give you feedback, on the way you're styling something, that you get very angry and you get very upset. And I want you to just know, this is simply, we're just looking to teach and train and elevate. So is there something going on for you that you can't meet this corporate value, like that it's hard for you, want to understand it? Like, you can really use your corporate values in that way. It's really great. You can tighten up role responsibilities. So maybe you have team members who are covering a lot of roles, but maybe you've got somebody who has an interest. One of our team members is amazing at sales and amazing at just connecting with people, and she's going to be taking on more sales and sales conversations. So this is a role responsibility where she's going to not only be doing that, but she's also tightening up our training and development of our team, which is something that she's been in even further. So she's taking this time to work on training topics, think about opportunities to help our team strengthen what they're doing. And so you can tighten these up and document them. And I suggest the E-Myth Revisited book again by Michael Gerber. Again, I'll link that in the show notes. Excellent resource for looking at role responsibilities and how you can create those and craft those and document them. You can develop a better hiring process. Maybe what you need to do is look at the candidates that you're working with and just understand and make sure that you're communicating through your job descriptions and role responsibilities, the kind of person that you want. One of the things that came out of an integration period for us was what I called the red velvet rope hiring process. This is when I created our intake application that everybody has to go through, because I was realizing I was taking phone calls with people who I was basically screening people on a phone call, which was a waste of my time. So we created this process of an application, and they have to take some personality tests, so I can really see this kind of person before we're even going to extend the opportunity for a short call. But it also helped me really focus on who I needed. And one of the things that we talk about is that we need an employee who is willing to flex and be busy in the spring, but have almost nothing to do in the summer and winter months. And that was a way to say that, not only will your time involvement at our company flex and shrink, well, so will your income. And we wanted to be really transparent about that. And we wanted to be very clear. So we wanted a person who maybe their household income wasn't dependent on them and what their revenue was on a yearly basis. Another thing you can do is imagine new ways to market your business and start to batch create that content. This is a really great time to just quiet your mind and let yourself get a little more creative and brainstorm with your team and come up with new ways to talk about what you do. This is when you can listen and read and learn how to do things better and research potential resources to help you get there. One of the things that came out of my integration period a few years ago was that I knew that design was something that we were going to be doing in these quieter times. But I knew that based on the way that I wanted to do design, we needed better systems and we needed a better structure. And I listened to a lot of podcasts and learned about Studio Designer and how it could help you manage your all of the ordering process and all of the items, as well as your bookkeeping. So I took the leap of faith to leave my current bookkeeper, leave QuickBooks, and start using Studio Designer. Hired and researched a Studio Designer specific bookkeeper and interviewed several. And that was one of the best things we did. And then coming into the next integration period, I realized that, okay, we've got Studio Designer dialed in, but ordering is becoming really clunky and cumbersome. And I'm getting a lot of questions and there's a lot of issues. And so I researched again how to hire a procurement person for that side of the business so that it could run more smoothly and run more smoothly without me all the time. So those things all came out of kind of the planning and research I was able to do during our integration times, which made the breakthroughs in our business so much better. You can take time to train your team. If you don't know what to do with your team, again, collaborating on, what the business can look like, the systems, the mission statement, the marketing. You can train on staging education or, and it doesn't need to be directly through staging. It can be color. Maria Killam offers some great programs about color. Linda Holt has an amazing program about photography with your iPhone that obviously you want your team to be able to take great photos of the work that you can use on social media. Michelle Cunningham has a great program about video and how to create better video. It's like so many programs out there that you can put in front of your team to educate them during this time. Again, you can train your team better on the systems that you have in place. So maybe there are systems that you have in place that you're not really using. Like for us, it would be Asana. At times became something that the team wasn't really using, and we wanted to encourage them to use it. So during these slower times when you're not so busy and you have fewer appointments coming in, it's easier to tap back into using those systems and using any new software in your business. Maybe you've introduced Stageforce. Maybe you've introduced a new app to do your styling evaluations. That was something we did. We worked with a company called Go Canvas to create a consultation app for our team. And this is when we practiced. We learned how to use it. We had our team go through their own homes. We had them go through friends and families' homes to learn how to use the app in this integration period. So there's so much you can do in the integration period, but there's so much that you can do to plan better for it. Planning better for your finances, planning better for your revenue streams, and planning better for how you will use your team in these quieter times. So I know this was a wicked big sip, but I hope it's a powerful one. I hope you even just take one thing away about these integration periods and how you can use them to your benefit to have some bigger breakthroughs. Okay, guys, have a wicked good week. I will see you next time. Bye for now.